March 1927. A cold Tuesday morning in Erdington, Birmingham. Thomas Hewitt stood in his garden at 47 Gravelly Hill North, watching 6 neighbors dig a trench through his rose beds. 52 years old, ironmonger by trade, homeowner for 3 years. The Birmingham Corporation gas main stopped half a mile away at the edge of Stockland Green, and the corporation had made it clear they had no plans to extend service into these new suburban estates for at least another 5 years, perhaps longer. The families in these 37 newly built homes faced winter evenings lit by oil lamps and cooking on coal ranges, while the city center, 2 miles south. Time equals 300 milliseconds enjoyed gas lighting and modern conveniences. Hewitt had purchased 600 feet of 2-inch wrought iron pipe from a Manchester foundry. Cost him £47, nearly 3 months' profit from the shop. The pipe sat in 8-foot sections along Gravelly Hill North, waiting. His neighbors, clerks, shopkeepers, a schoolteacher, 2 factory supervisors, had pooled resources. They'd hired William Patterson, a former gas company fitter who'd worked laying mains in Aston before the war. Patterson was 63, arthritis in both hands, but he knew pipe threads and joint compounds and the precise fall required for gas. Pressure regulation. The plan was straightforward. They would lay their own gas main from the corporation's supply point at Stockland Green to their estate, connect it illegally at night, run it through back gardens and under roadways until every house had supply, then present the corporation with a fait accompli. The alternative was waiting indefinitely while watching neighbors in corporation-serviced areas enjoy modern comfort. Similar schemes were unfolding across Birmingham's expanding periphery that spring. In Yardley, 43 households were organizing a pipe-laying cooperative. In Kings Norton, residents had already connected to the main supply without permission. Time equals 350 milliseconds / and were facing legal proceedings. In Handsworth Wood, a group of ex-servicemen had formed what they called the Independent Gas Consumers Association and were surveying routes through private land. The Birmingham Corporation had expanded the city boundaries in 1911, annexing vast suburban territories, but infrastructure development lagged years behind. Population pressure from war industry workers who'd settled permanently, combined with new housing estates built by private developers, created thousands of homes beyond the gas grid. The corporation's position was legal and bureaucratic. Extending gas mains required capital investment, committee approval, parliamentary authorization for road excavation, and coordination with water and sewer line installations. The process took years. Applications submitted in 1924 were still being reviewed in 1927. Meanwhile, estate agents sold homes with promises of future gas connection, while families cooked on coal ranges that filled their kitchens with soot. Hewitt's group started digging on March 8, 1927. Patterson laid out the route with surveyor's stakes. The trench needed to be 4 feet deep to clear frost line and prevent damage from surface traffic. 2 feet wide. They worked in shifts, early morning before factory hours, late evening after work. Soil was heavy clay, waterlogged from March rains. They hit rocky patches that required pickaxes. Mrs. Eleanor Davies at number 51 provided tea and sandwiches. Her husband had been killed at Passchendaele. She had 2 sons under 10 and couldn't afford the coal required for cooking and heating both. Patterson insisted on proper technique. Each pipe section had to be threaded, sealed with hemp and red lead compound, tested for integrity. Gas was unforgiving. A poor joint meant leaks. Leaks meant explosions. He'd seen a house leveled in Aston in 1913 from faulty pipework, killed 3 people including a child. The group worked slowly, methodically. Patterson checked every connection twice. They reached the Stockland Green main on March 23rd. Time equals 350 milliseconds / 15 days of evening and weekend labor. The corporation main ran beneath Chester Road in a 4-inch cast iron pipe installed in 1914. Patterson's plan required accessing the main through an existing inspection valve, installing a T-connection, then sealing and concealing the work before corporation inspectors discovered it. The connection work had to happen at night. Minimal light, fast execution. 4 men assisted Patterson: Hewitt, George Marsden from number 49, Frederick Shaw from number 53, and David Coleman from number 45. They started at 2 a.m. on March 26th, a Saturday morning. No moon. Coleman stood watch at the Chester Road junction. Time equals 400 milliseconds greater than Patterson used a pipe wrench to access the inspection valve cover. The valve was stiff, hadn't been opened since installation. Took 20 minutes to break free. Shaw held a shielded oil lamp. The light was barely sufficient. Patterson installed the T-connection, threading it onto the existing valve stem. He'd modified a standard brass fitting, adding a reducing collar to match the 2-inch feed line they'd laid. The work required precision. One cross thread would mean catastrophic failure. His hand shook, partly from cold, partly from arthritis, partly from the consequences of failure. Criminal prosecution was possible. The Birmingham Gas Act of 1902. Time equals 300 milliseconds greater than made unauthorized connection a misdemeanor, punishable by fine and imprisonment. The connection seated properly at 3:47 a.m. Patterson applied hempen compound, torqued the joint to full pressure rating, then slowly opened the valve. Gas began flowing through their pipe. They could hear it, a faint hissing as pressure equalized through 600 feet of new main. No leaks at the connection point. Patterson sealed the inspection valve cover, packed dirt over the excavation, replaced the road surface with salvaged paving stones. By 5:30 a.m. they'd cleared the site. No visible evidence remained. The gas reached Hewitt's home at 6:15 a.m. He opened the valve on his new gas range. Purchased 2 months earlier, the anticipation, and lit the burner. Blue flame, steady pressure. 19 other households connected to the new main that morning. Kitchens filled with the smell of cooked breakfast instead of coal smoke. Gas mantles replaced oil lamps. The transformation was immediate. The Birmingham Corporation discovered the unauthorized connection on April 4th, 1927, during a routine pressure check. Inspectors noticed unusual flow patterns in the Stockland Green sector. They traced the discrepancy to Chester Road, found Patterson's T-connection, and followed the buried main to the Erdington estate. The corporation's legal department issued formal notices to all connected households on April 7th. Disconnection was scheduled for April 15th. Criminal proceedings against Patterson and the organizing committee would follow. The response surprised corporation officials. The Erdington households retained a solicitor, presented engineering documentation proving the installation met Board of Trade safety standards, and offered to retroactively purchase the gas consumed at standard rates plus a connection fee. More significantly, they organized a public meeting attended by representatives from 12 other suburban estates pursuing similar schemes. The meeting filled the Erdington Assembly Hall on April 12th. Over 300 people attended. The argument they presented was simple. The corporation had claimed territory through boundary expansion, but failed to provide services. Private developers had built homes the city encouraged to ease housing shortages. Families had purchased these homes in good faith. Waiting 5 years or more for gas connection was unreasonable when the technical capacity existed and households were willing to pay standard rates. The war had trained men in engineering and construction. Those skills could be applied to infrastructure development if the corporation wouldn't act. The Birmingham Gas Committee met on April 19th. They faced a dilemma. Disconnecting the Erdington supply would create public relations problems and potentially dangerous situations if households reverted to unsafe heating methods. Prosecuting Patterson and the organizers would generate sympathy. Time equals 300 milliseconds greater than slash and encourage more unauthorized connections. but allowing the connection to stand would undermine regulatory authority and potentially encourage similar actions across the expanding suburbs. The compromise emerged over 3 weeks of negotiation. The corporation would recognize the Erdington connection, provided the installation passed formal safety inspection and households paid retroactive connection fees plus a 15% surcharge for unauthorized access. Patterson and the organizing committee would not face criminal charges. In exchange, the corporation would accelerate gas main extensions to suburban estates, prioritizing areas where resident groups could demonstrate organized demand and contribute to excavation costs through volunteer labor. The Erdington connection passed inspection on May 11, 1927. Patterson's work met every safety standard. The joints were solid, the pressure regulation proper, the materials appropriate. 37 households formalized their connections. Total cost per household, £8 for retroactive fees and charges, far less than the £25 to £40 the corporation typically charged for individual connections to existing mains. The precedent spread rapidly. By June 1927, 14 suburban estates had organized similar schemes. 8 completed unauthorized connections before corporation intervention. The corporation adapted, creating a new resident cooperative extension program that allowed organized neighborhoods to perform. Excavation and basic installation work under corporation supervision, reducing costs by approximately 60%. The program expanded access significantly. Between 1927 and 1930, Birmingham's gas network grew by 47 miles, connecting 6,800 previously unserviced homes. Thomas Hewitt operated his ironmongery until 1945. He never expressed regret about the unauthorized connection. The 47-pound investment in pipe proved the best money he'd spent. His wife cooked on that gas range for 23 years. William Patterson died in 1931, still living at his Aston home. The arthritis eventually made pipe fitting impossible, but he'd trained 11 younger men in proper gas installation technique during the cooperative extensions of 1927 to 1929. The corporation eventually absorbed the Erdington main into the official network in 1929, upgrading portions to 4-inch pipe to serve expanding population. The original 2-inch section Patterson installed remained in service until 1964, when the city converted from coal gas to natural gas and replaced the entire distribution system. 37 years of continuous operation without a single leak or safety incident. Engineering done properly, regardless of authorization, proved more reliable than bureaucratic delay. The story matters because it reveals how infrastructure development actually happened in interwar Britain. Not through smooth bureaucratic planning, but through tension between institutional caution and household necessity. The men who dug those trenches and laid those pipes weren't criminals or radicals. They were homeowners who'd been promised modern amenities and grew tired of waiting. They took calculated risks, applied available skills, and created working solutions. The fact that Birmingham Corporation ultimately integrated these unauthorized networks into official systems suggests the installations met genuine needs through legitimate means, even if the initial connections violated regulations. By 1935, the resident cooperative model had spread beyond Birmingham. Manchester, Liverpool, and Leeds adopted similar programs. The approach acknowledged a reality. Time equals 350 milliseconds / suburban expansion outpaced municipal infrastructure capacity, and residents possess skills sufficient to assist in development. The cooperative extensions of the late 1920s connected approximately 34,000 homes across British industrial cities. Homes that might have waited a decade or more for service under traditional bureaucratic processes. The Gravelly Hill North Main, Patterson's unauthorized connection, became official infrastructure. The households that funded and installed it paid standard rates thereafter. And on cold March evenings, while Birmingham expanded inexorably outward, Blue flames burned steadily in suburban kitchens because neighbors decided waiting was no longer acceptable. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor, hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about ordinary people solving extraordinary problems. Real ingenuity, real determination. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United Kingdom, United States, Canada, Australia? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if your family remembers similar infrastructure struggles. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Thomas Hewitt and William Patterson don't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.